Welcome back to our channel. Think a penny can't change your life? These ones did. Find out which to look for. The year 1979 was unremarkable in many ways for the U.S. penny. The Lincoln Memorial design had already been in use for 2 decades, and the mint's operations were highly automated by then. As usual, pennies were produced in enormous quantities at the Philadelphia and Denver facilities. These coins were meant for daily commerce, quickly struck, bagged, and distributed. They weren't designed for scrutiny. But among the billions minted that year, a few were struck under very different circumstances, carrying with them an invisible signature of error that would only be recognized years later by those who knew exactly what to look for. Each coin passed through a complex process involving dies, collars, and planchets, all functioning under tremendous speed and pressure. It only takes a tiny slip, a misaligned die, a tilted planchet, a worn-out punch, to produce something truly exceptional. In 1979, such a slip occurred more than once, though no one noticed at the time. Not even the mint workers. These mistakes blended in with billions of flawless coins. That is, until one of them landed in the hands of someone patient enough to pay attention. James Knoll was a part-time antique dealer from Wisconsin who often frequented estate sales and flea markets. He had a particular interest in old war medals and silver pieces, but coins never really captured his imagination. That changed in 2017, when he bought a sealed tobacco tin from a farmhouse sale. Inside, among dried buttons and rusted keys, he found about 100 old pennies. Most were from the 1970s. He poured them out, just for curiosity, and started inspecting the dates. That's when one coin gave him pause. It was a 1979 penny, bearing the familiar profile of Abraham Lincoln. But something about Lincoln's face looked different, thicker, with slightly doubled contours around the jawline and lips. The Liberty inscription was oddly spaced. The rim looked slightly warped. At first, James assumed it was damage from circulation or maybe heat exposure. But the coin's surface was unusually sharp for something over 30 years old. He flipped it over and saw something else strange. The Lincoln Memorial columns appeared to be doubled near the center, and the words, United States of America, showed minor but visible overlapping. That he set the coin aside, not thinking much of it. Later that month, while researching Civil War tokens online, he came across a forum post about doubled die pennies. He clicked, unsure why. The photos posted looked strangely familiar. He retrieved the 1979 penny from the tin and examined it more carefully. The more he looked, the more confident he became. He was holding something that shouldn't be common. James mailed the coin to a grading service, still unsure whether he was imagining things. When the report came back, the certification changed everything. His 1979 penny was a rare double die obverse coin. But that wasn't all. The graders noted signs of die fatigue, misalignment during strike, and rim distortion consistent with collar shift, all present in one coin. It was not just a case of doubling. It was a perfect storm of minting mishaps, all converging on a single 1-cent piece. The news sparked ripples among error coin collectors. People began reviewing their own stashes of 1979 pennies, many of which had gone unnoticed in circulation or were tucked away in albums. What followed was a slow but fascinating uncovering of errors that had flown under the radar for decades. Collectors reported coins with minor doubling, but a few more rare examples surfaced showing full-face doubling, distorted memorial lines, or planchets with pitting and inconsistent surfaces. What puzzled some experts was the frequency with which these different error types appeared in the same coin. Usually, mint errors are isolated, one type per coin. But these 1979 pennies sometimes bore 2 or even 3 distinct mistakes. Theories surfaced. Some speculated that a brief malfunction at the mint's press line in Philadelphia may have led to a window where improperly secured dies and worn collar rings operated without detection. Others suggested that a damaged master hub may have left imperfections on multiple working dies. Still, no official acknowledgement from the mint emerged. As usual, the agency remained silent on the subject, offering no commentary about unusual production errors from that year. This only fueled the interest. With mystery came demand. James's coin set off a new wave of interest in 1979 pennies. Dealers began seeing an uptick in customers asking specifically about that year. Coin forums buzzed with images and comparisons. A collector in Utah uncovered a 1979 penny with misaligned obverse features and partial edge doubling. Another in Georgia found one with unusual toning that, under closer inspection, turned out to be caused by alloy inconsistency, a rarity, but one that added yet another dimension to the 1979 anomalies. The market reacted cautiously at first. A few pieces sold privately for modest figures, but as more authenticated examples appeared with consistent features and third-party grading, the value began to climb. A coin with strong doubling and visible collar shift sold for $18,000 at a regional show. Another with both obverse and reverse anomalies brought in over $15,000 at a heritage event. But the real shift happened in 2021, when a pristine, uncirculated 1979-era penny with clear doubling, die cracks near the date, and a perfectly visible ridge line across the reverse sold for an astonishing $48,500. That auction sparked broader interest. More coins surfaced. Some had stronger features than others, but nearly all showed the same combination of traits: partial or full doubling, planchet distortions, and errors that affected both sides of the coin. Suddenly, the 1979 penny, once considered a common date in modern numismatics, was being re-examined and re-evaluated on a national scale. Then came the unexpected twist. A coin dealer in New Mexico submitted a 1979 penny for analysis after a client brought it in, convinced something was off. It turned out the penny had been struck on a planchet intended for a foreign denomination. The composition, weight, and color were subtly different. The coin, though bearing U.S. design, was minted on the wrong metal, an astonishing mistake in a time when such errors had supposedly been eradicated by automation. This penny, upon authentication, shattered records at auction months later. With these revelations, the 1979 Lincoln Memorial Cent became one of the most intriguing pieces from the modern minting era. It had all the hallmarks of a classic collectible: rarity, mystery, and visible errors that defied easy explanation. Collectors who once overlooked the date now looked at it with fascination and urgency. James still keeps his original discovery locked in a private safe, turning down multiple offers over the years. For him, the coin is more than metal. It's proof that the most extraordinary finds are sometimes the most unexpected. It also reminded the numismatic community that even in the late 20th century, the mint was capable of releasing enigmatic errors into the public without notice. As of today, authenticated and high-grade examples of the 1979 penny bearing these complex errors are reaching impressive prices. Depending on the strength of the doubling, the clarity of the anomalies, and the overall condition of the coin, these rare 1979 error cents have fetched between $55,000 and $122,000 on the collector's market. And with more discoveries still possible, this once unremarkable penny continues to grow in legend, hiding its secrets in pockets and jars across the country, waiting for someone else to take a second look. The 1999 US 1-cent penny was never expected to make headlines. It belonged to the final full year of the Lincoln Memorial design, a reverse that had defined the cent since 1959. Billions were struck at the Philadelphia and Denver mints, their production humming along with a mechanical rhythm honed by decades of perfection. The U.S. Mint had refined its techniques by the end of the 20th century, relying on high-speed machinery and rigorous quality control to prevent mistakes. But even in such a controlled environment, perfection isn't always absolute. Somewhere deep within that year's production cycle, unnoticed by any technician or inspector, a few coins were minted that broke the mold, literally and figuratively. No announcement was made, no internal memo circulated. Yet those coins would eventually challenge assumptions, stir excitement in the collector community, and redefine how we view even the most common years in coinage history. It began with a man named Curtis Delaney, a retired schoolteacher from Iowa with an old fascination for coins and a quiet routine. Curtis had a habit of withdrawing rolls of pennies from the bank every Friday, a simple ritual he'd followed for years. He enjoyed the rhythm of inspecting them under a small desk lamp in his study, always hoping to find a wheat cent or the occasional foreign oddity. But on one summer evening in 2019, a single coin pulled from a freshly opened roll made him pause. The date read 1999. At first glance, it looked like any other Lincoln Memorial cent. But Curtis noticed that Lincoln's profile appeared thick, almost swollen around the forehead and jaw. The word "Liberty" seemed distorted, particularly the "B", which looked oddly stretched. More curiously, the rim on one side of the coin was nearly non-existent, while the opposite side bulged, the edge pressing into the letters that he flipped the coin over. The Lincoln Memorial looked warped. The central pillars seemed to bleed into one another. The words, "United States of America," curved unnaturally, with a visible doubling effect. It wasn't damage. The coin's surface was too clean for that. Curtis had seen worn pennies, corroded pennies, and even the occasional one struck off-center. But this one was different. It was subtle, and yet unmistakable. Something was wrong. Unsure of what he had found, he photographed the coin and posted it on a numismatic forum, expecting a few casual replies. Instead, experienced collectors responded quickly. Several encouraged him to get it examined professionally. One even hinted that a similar coin had sold a year earlier at a private event. Curtis took their advice. The coin was submitted to a well-known grading service. Weeks later, the results came back: a strong double die obverse, misaligned collar, and evidence of die deterioration. It was authentic. And it was rare. That certification stirred interest. Experts noted that while minor die errors and doubling are not uncommon in high-volume mint years, the severity and clarity seen in Curtis's coin were extremely rare for 1999. The doubling affected Lincoln's eye, the date, and "In God We Trust." Combined with the rim distortion and signs of planchet irregularities, the coin was not just a double die, it was a multifaceted mint error. Soon, other collectors began re-examining their own 1999 pennies. A few posted photos of coins with light doubling or unusual edges. But only a handful came close to what Curtis had uncovered. One coin from a collector in Oregon displayed similar doubling and a faint clash mark, indicating that the obverse and reverse dies may have collided without a planchet in place, leaving behind a shadowy imprint. Another from New Jersey showed uneven reading marks along the edge, something not typically found on a cent. These findings led to speculation. Some numismatists believed the Philadelphia Mint had briefly used a misaligned die set or improperly adjusted press settings during a transitional maintenance period. Others suggested that a single die, used longer than it should have been, degraded to the point of producing a limited run of flawed coins before being retired. No public records confirmed these theories, but they persisted all the same. The more collectors searched, the clearer it became: the 1999 error penny was not a myth or coincidence. It was real, and it was scarce. Then came the twist. In late 2021, a coin surfaced bearing the 1999 date, but it was struck on a blank intended for a dime. Smaller, lighter, and thinner than a standard cent, the coin bore a full Lincoln design, but compressed into an oddly miniature surface. The strike was sharp, the detail intact, and the grading service confirmed the anomaly: a U.S. cent design struck on a dime planchet. Such a minting error is exceedingly rare, especially so late in the 20th century. This coin sold for a staggering $67,000 at auction. News of this sale sparked a buying frenzy. Collectors scoured their change. Dealers received dozens of inquiries. Several coins with strong obverse doubling and misaligned dies sold in rapid succession, each fetching higher prices than the last. One particularly pristine specimen with clear doubling on Lincoln's lips, heavy distortion on "Liberty," and an off-center reverse hammer-struck alignment was sold privately for $81,500. What makes the 1999 penny so compelling is that it was minted during a time when mistakes like these were assumed to be a thing of the past. The late 1990s were a technologically advanced period for the mint. And yet, somehow, a handful of flawed coins passed through undetected, quietly entering the world like ghosts. Curtis Delaney kept his coin. Not because of its value, but because of what it meant. It proved that even the most ordinary object, a 1-cent piece nearly everyone ignored, could tell an extraordinary story if looked at closely enough. He went on to speak at several numismatic events, often closing his presentations with the same reminder: the next great discovery might already be sitting in someone's change jar. Today, collectors regard the 1999 Lincoln Memorial cent error as one of the most fascinating modern penny discoveries. Whether it's the dramatic double dies, off-metal strikes, or eerie clash marks, these coins are increasingly rare in high grades and near-perfect condition. The hunt continues, but the known examples already hold firm ground in auctions and private collections, depending on their clarity, condition, and error type. These rare 1999 US 1-cent error pennies have sold in recent years for anywhere from $42,000 to $106,000, solidifying their place as one of the most valuable and mysterious modern errors in American coinage history. The 2004 US 1-cent penny, like countless others struck across the early 2000s, was never meant to draw attention. It was part of the final chapter of the long-standing Lincoln Memorial series, which had run for decades. Pennies were minted in the billions, almost machine-like in their precision, their destiny to disappear into cash registers, tip jars, couch cushions, and the unnoticed corners of daily life. But as the presses at the Philadelphia and Denver mints thundered through their cycles, unnoticed by the public or even mint employees themselves, a few coins emerged that carried a hidden anomaly, something small, nearly invisible to the casual observer, but extraordinary to those who understood the language of error. Among the masses of near-identical coins, a small handful bore the silent fingerprint of a mistake. This wasn't a dramatic off-center strike or a planchet cut from the wrong metal. It was more nuanced, more deceptive. And that was what made it so compelling. The story found its voice through a collector named Alan Price, a university archivist from North Carolina. Alan had always been drawn to stories preserved in unusual places, marginalia in old books, forgotten photo negatives, and yes, coins. His coin collecting wasn't extensive, but it was purposeful. He collected by years that mattered to him. Births, graduations, milestones. That's why, in 2014, while helping a colleague move offices, he pocketed a random penny that had fallen behind a bookshelf. The date read 2004, the year he had completed his graduate thesis, that he almost forgot about it. It sat on his desk for weeks, a mere token of sentiment. One rainy afternoon, while rearranging some books, he picked it up and noticed something strange. The 4 in the date looked swollen. The word Liberty appeared compressed, as if pushed from one side. It didn't look worn, it looked misshapen. That he examined the reverse. The Lincoln Memorial seemed to blur slightly toward the left side, with lines that weren't quite aligned. The top arch appeared to have an odd shadowing, like a second outline trying to push through. The rim was subtly thicker on one side, barely noticeable unless held at just the right angle under the light. Alan was intrigued, but not convinced. He had seen damaged coins before. Heat, pressure, circulation. But this felt different. It wasn't destruction, it was miscreation. He took it to a local coin dealer, just to be sure. The dealer didn't react immediately. He squinted, turned it under the light, then reached for a loop. Minutes passed in silence. Then came a careful nod. "You might have something special here," the dealer said. The coin was sent for grading and authentication. The report came back identifying multiple errors layered into a single piece, a double die obverse, visible in Lincoln's eye, mouth, and jawline. Misaligned lettering on, "In God We Trust." A faint die clash on the reverse, where outlines from the obverse had imprinted faintly onto the opposite die face. Even more compelling was the coin's condition, it had barely circulated. Its sharpness only amplified the visibility of its imperfections. Alan's discovery reopened a conversation that many had quietly abandoned. The early 2000s had not been a focus of error coin enthusiasts. Most attention went to older coins or high-profile modern rarities. But the 2004 penny challenged that assumption. More examples started to appear. A collector in Arizona posted images of a coin with dramatic doubling along the motto and a subtle fishtailing effect on the 4. Another in Indiana shared a piece where the Lincoln Memorial's pillars appeared to melt inward under magnification, a probable die fatigue signature. Soon, theories swirled. A small batch of working dies at the Denver Mint, possibly misaligned due to worn equipment or improper installation, may have produced these anomalies. Others pointed to a short-lived batch of planchets with composition inconsistencies, tiny differences in metal blend that affected strike pressure and design clarity. None of these theories were confirmed by the mint, which maintained its long-standing policy of silence regarding small-run minting errors. That silence only increased the mystique. Allen's coin quickly gained attention at regional shows. Error specialists flocked to examine it. Some marveled at the doubling clarity, particularly around the bridge of Lincoln's nose. Others were captivated by the near-perfect clash mark on the reverse, an imprint so faint it seemed to fade as one watched it. When it finally went to auction, the coin exceeded every expectation, closing at over $38,000. That auction signaled a shift. Collectors began to treat the 2004 penny with renewed interest. More coins were submitted for authentication. A coin found in Kentucky, with a partial collar strike and die rotation, sold for nearly $44,000. Another example from a Florida estate featured strong doubling on both Liberty and the Memorial Steps, eventually reaching $59,000 in a private sale. But then, something even more surprising happened. A 2004 penny surfaced that had been struck on a blank planchet intended for a Canadian cent, slightly different in weight and color. This off-metal error bore the full U.S. Lincoln design. How it happened was anyone's guess, but the grading was irrefutable. The error was real. And that coin later crossed the auction block for $84,000, stunning even seasoned professionals. What captivated the numismatic community wasn't just the errors themselves, it was how quietly they had entered the world. The 2004 cent was never intended to be special. It was a workhorse coin, produced in massive quantities, forgotten as soon as it was spent. And yet, tucked inside those billions, a few flawed pieces whispered their story only to those who bothered to listen. Allen kept only one coin from that year, the original discovery. It rests in a protective capsule on a shelf beside his old university textbooks. For him, it's a reminder that value isn't always obvious. That even the most overlooked objects can hold secrets. That ordinary things, under just the right light, can prove to be extraordinary. Today, the 2004 US 1-cent penny has become one of the quiet legends of modern mint errors. With each new discovery, its reputation grows. The number of known specimens remains low, and demand among collectors continues to rise. Depending on the type of error, its visibility, and the coin's condition, these 2004 penny errors have sold in recent years for between $34,000 and $90,000, transforming a once unnoticed cent into one of the most coveted finds of the modern numismatic world.